Well, welcome to all of you. It's fantastic to have so many of you online tonight. And for those of you who are watching the recording over the festive season, it'd be wonderful to have you and in terms of this process. Before I go any further, I did want to welcome 4 people that I've known for a very long time. It's quite interesting how our roads have crossed over many, many years. And there's a lot of talk, whether you're in South Africa or China, around the world, for people wanting to look at investing in the first world and getting first world passports. So what we decided to do was tonight on this webinar to bring 4 authorities in this space together. Hang on. Just going to mute there quickly. So that we can bring 4 authorities in the space together, you know, from America, Australia, Portugal, and Cyprus. Jenny, I'm just going to mute you quickly. And basically, who we're looking at tonight, just so that you know who we've got online. We've got Jenny Elianis from Cyprus. And ultimately, Cyprus is part of the EU. And so welcome, Jenny. I'll unmute you quickly. Sorry, there's a bit of an echo there, but wonderful to have you online tonight. And I'm not sure where you are in the world. I know you travel a huge amount, but where are you at the moment?
Thanks, Scotty. Nice to meet everybody. I'm actually in Cyprus at the moment here with some investor clients. You can see in the background, it's already dusk. We're here because we're looking at already heading towards autumn. But apart from that, really good place in the world to be. Nice to be in the Med.
Fantastic. Well, it's very authentic for you to be in Cyprus on this conversation, so that's great. We've also got Andrew Rizek. I know Andrew, I spoke to him earlier. They've got a business in terms of Sable International. They've helped our clients move money for over, probably the last 10 years, but they also help people invest in Portugal. And I think, Andrew, you're in Cape Town at the moment, are you not?
Yeah, sorry, not as exotic as Jen. Yeah, I'm at home for a change in Cape Town. I'm off to Lisbon on Sunday for 10 days. But yeah, Cape Town.
Cool. And then we've got Stuart Ferguson. Again, Stuart and I have known each other for a long time, and I've also been on buyers trips out to see their projects in America. We've had a number of clients actually invest through them and move to America and get their EB5s and everything. My understanding is, Stuart, you guys are down in Cape Town today as well. Stuart, can you hear us?
Oh, I think he's gone.
Yeah, I'm gonna move on. Stuart, if you hear us, just give us a shout. You were talking just now, so I don't know if you've had a blackout there in Cape Town. And then the 4th person online tonight is Andrew Kerr. I met Andrew in 2008. Ironically, we were just joking before the webinar about how similar times are to 2008. When I first met Andrew, in those days there was a huge immigration out of South Africa, and in 2008.
Advocate. Yeah, I'm currently in Canada.
Sure, Stuart, it's coming through really. Let's try
it again. Because the Cape Townian's just a little slow tonight, Scott. So thanks for having me, and I'm looking forward to contributing to anybody that wants to find out about legally living in these countries.
Excellent. So just before I move on, Stuart, are you there now? It was breaking in a little bit, but let's just see if it's working now.
Yeah, Scott, we're here. I think we've just got a bit of a weak signal, so we may log out and log back in.
Oh, you're coming through clearly now, so that's perfect. I'll try not to interrupt you.
Okay, great, thanks.
Sorry, I've got a bit of a cough, but so really welcome to all 4 of you. It's wonderful to have you all online. I wanted to just share with people. A lot of people know me for the company International Property Solutions, or RPS. And I started in 2004, and basically I met all 4 of these partners when we were on stages, and most often we were actually effectively competing with each other, where they had a good product and I was helping people invest in wherever I was promoting at the time. And really for me, as I looked at it over the years, I thought to myself, there's a real need to help people. We had a lot of people come to us that couldn't necessarily afford the deposits or couldn't necessarily get involved in terms of investing in passports or even in commercial property, etc. And we basically looked at the problem. And if you look at it from an investor perspective, people are generally very much stuck in country. The barriers to entry are really high. It doesn't even matter how much money you've got. They don't know where to invest. They don't know who to invest with. They don't understand the overseas structures, the tax, the compliance. And so really from our side, we decided to build a platform. Could I ask you guys a favor, all four of you, if you wouldn't mind just muting yourself, and then when you want to talk, you can unmute, and then we won't get the echo back.
Perfect. I will do that right now.
And really what we wanted to do was to provide a platform to allow the 99% to be able to invest like the top 1%. We've now built that platform, and people can invest in a couple of minutes, get access to the best partners, which what tonight is all about. In the past, as I said, we used to compete. Now I don't see it as a competition at all. I see it as 4 trusted partners where we want to, let the world be able to find the right partners, whether they want to invest in Cyprus or Portugal or America or Australia or New Zealand. They can now go and find those partners. They can get access to them in a safe and simple way. They don't need to worry about all the hassle that used to be previously out there. And so in simple terms, how does it work? Well, you've got the best partners in the world, and all of them that are on tonight, are those partners. They list on the platform. Now, version 5 of our platform is only going live on the 30th of November, and the intention is to be able to list all our partners on there. Then you and I can go online, and we can basically get access to the partners. We can invest online. And obviously a passport's slightly different because there's more technicalities to it, but all of the partners who are online tonight can actually hold investors' hands through the process and help them achieve their ultimate objective in terms of what they're looking to do, both on the investment side and getting that golden visa, getting that passport that they're looking to do. And just before I hand over to them, there's clearly a demand for it. We've now got members in 118 countries. We've had facilitated over $500 million in real estate deals. We've had $79 million go through the platform. And something I'm probably proudest of is we've got more than 70% of our investors actually reinvest in terms of the opportunities. And so hopefully that just gives you a nutshell of why we're doing it. The metaphor that I like to use is that in the past, when we were IPS, we used to sell all gold tomato sauce. Just think of it like tomato sauce, or even this bottle of Valpro water. And now really with Wealth Migrate, we've created a supermarket. And it's very much about bringing, something like a Woolworths, where it's about bringing the best quality partners and then allowing people to choose what is best for them. And so that variety and that selection for us is incredibly important. But what's most important for us is bringing you trusted partners. And all 4 of these partners I've known for more than 10 years. And I know for a fact that if you want to invest in any one of these markets, they are the best service providers to help you in those markets. And so without further ado, I wanted to hand over to Jenny to start off with, because what we're going to do tonight is we're going to run through short sessions with each one of the 4 partners where they can give you an overview of how the country works, what the opportunities are, how one can get a passport there. And then at the end, we'll do Q&A with everyone so that you can answer any questions that you want. And so, Jenny, do you want me to share my screen with you so that you can use your own PowerPoint?
Right. So how do I actually do that?
I just sorry, before I share my screen with you, I've just realized I haven't actually shared any of my screens. So I'm just going to very quickly fly through this. I don't need to do the intros. That was the problem slide I used. That was the making it easy for people. This was the partners. Again, I just want to visually so people can see. This is the partners. That's the listing. That's you and I, the investors, and then the opportunity to invest on the platform. And then those are the metrics that I was talking about. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hand over to Jenny, and you should be able to take over the screen now, Jenny, in terms of driving from your side.
Okay, just want to explain how I put the presentation in there. Otherwise, I can just chat it through if it doesn't want to go through. Okay.
No, it will go through. You just go, as it comes up on the screen, just go share.
Is it showing it now? Can you see it?
It'll come. Just wait a little bit.
Okay.
Did you go show screen?
Trying again. Let me try once more.
Yeah.
How's that?
Got it. Okay, we got it. So we can see your screen now, and your PowerPoint's off to the right-hand side of your screen.
Gotcha, fantastic. So I can just click through. Well, first of all, thanks again, Scott, for setting it up. It's really exciting to be able to chat to everybody today about realizing a Plan B in Europe. Very quick overview about, thank you for cementing the credibility of dealing with best-of-breed brands. Spirit Realty has been going for 10 years. Yep, we started in 2008. The big advantage we have is that we have offices not only in Cape Town and Sandton, but in Cyprus as well. So we really offer that hand-holding, personalized service that you can actually get involved with when you own a property and an investment, that it's not just somebody you're dealing with on the other side. We've got the muscle and whatever you need to be able to make it happen. Cyprus is critical in terms of looking at a Plan B, purely because the residency and the second citizenship programs are currently voted as being one of the most attractive in Europe. In terms of investment and legacy plans, it's also ticking a big box there. Even for those of you that are looking to possibly relocate or even retire, Cyprus has a big advantage on that front. But the lifestyle aspects are where Cyprus is making a huge, big inroad in terms of being appealing to South Africans. If we have a quick look, my apologies, I've given you the wrong presentation here. I want to give you the proper one. If you give me 1 second. Sorry, Scott. I've given you the long one, which we certainly don't want to be involved in. Open. That one will take at least 25 to 30 minutes, and I just want to make sure I'm getting you the correct one with the shortened slide version. Let me just check this is the correct one. This is it, right? Slideshow. The big reason that South Africans have actually fallen in love with Cyprus, Scott, is because number one reason is the safety factor. No matter where you're living in the world, it's very important that you are taking that into consideration. We don't want to kind of go pot into the fire. Last year was actually voted as being the safest country in the world for young people. That means for their emotional, their work perspective, as well as the opportunity to actually have a good standard of living. And in 2016, the safest country in the world. Currently voted as having the best residency program available in Europe. It's the only one where 3 generations in the same direct line all get residency by buying a property. So on the fast track program, which is appealing to quite a few South Africans, is both the parents and the in-laws all qualify for residency by buying the same property, and also it includes dependent children up to the age of 25. The permits are approved in 6 to 8 weeks. That means your permanent residency permits. They are for life. They automatically renew. And some of the criteria that you need to be aware of is that you need to buy a minimum value of a property for 300,000 euros. It needs to be a new property, but the big advantage there is only 2/3 of that property purchase price must be paid up front. Balance we can finance. So we're looking at 200,000 euros plus the VAT from South Africa. Balance we can give you finance in Cyprus. You also need to put some money in a 3-year fixed deposit account. You never have to live in Cyprus except go back 1 day every 2nd year for your residency permits to remain valid, and you can rent out your property to earn a nice euro-based income. The benefits of this particular program are that 3 generations qualify. It's one of the only programs in Europe where mum-in-law, as well as parents and children up to 25, get their residency in the 6 to 8 weeks, as I mentioned. The Schengen visa is issued once you become a permanent resident. Although Cyprus as a country doesn't issue visas themselves, we go via our conduit via the Greek embassy or the Italian embassy, and we're managing to get our clients between 2 and 3 year Schengen visas stamped into their South African passports. No inheritance tax, which is a huge tax benefit for our South Africans looking to create a meaningful legacy plan. And once you've lived in the country for 6 consecutive years as a permanent resident, you can actually qualify for citizenship through naturalization. The second best citizenship program available is that this is being voted as what's available for South Africans looking to basically buy their European passport through the Citizenship through Investment program. This is your gateway to Europe. Having a EU passport that is based on Cyprus means you have visa-free access to 171 countries in the world. It gives you a lot of opportunities to do whatever you like in the whole of the EU, including the UK for now. Let's see what happens after Brexit. Who qualifies on this program is all dependent children up to the age of 28, so it's quite an involved program, plus the parents of the main applicant are entitled to apply as long as we purchase another property for €500,000 for mum and dad. The citizen is approved in 6 months. It's guaranteed to be approved because what we do is you put your money in escrow. The investors are not at any risk. We do all the due diligence. Interpol gets their reports through. If the application is not approved, the money is returned risk-free, but we would have done all of the due diligence in the background. And most importantly is this citizenship is passed on by descent to all future generations. It's not like some countries where it actually passes off at the end of 2 or 3 generations down the line. Criteria, it's an eye-watering amount of 2 million euros in residential property, but the big important factor is that you never ever have to step foot again in Cyprus. You can sell off this 2 million euro investment after 3 years as long as you retain a single residential property for €500,000 euros indefinitely. So after 3 years, you basically are recouping 75% of your initial investment. Plus, of course, you've got the capital appreciation. And if you were a smart investor and you were using a portfolio of property, you will be enjoying a rental income as well, which will be able to sock away into the European Union for you to earn some nice interest on that as well. The benefits, of course, of being an EU resident is you have the same rights as anybody living in Italy, the Netherlands, or Germany. Study anywhere you like, including the UK, as I mentioned. There's also no inheritance tax being a citizen of Cyprus. And, of course, you're buying your insurance against any political instability or financial concerns that are happening here in South Africa. The fourth main reason that South Africans love Cyprus, Scott, and the guys that are listening in, is the incredible lifestyle. From first world infrastructure, slopes on the mountain ranges, anything you can want in terms of your lifestyle environments, Cyprus can tick a box. Some important factors for those that are number.
Jenny, we're losing you a little bit. Maybe if you can switch your webcam on.
That have a booming economy. They had 3.9% growth in Korea. Very that will go through. It's an 800 million to 1 trillion euro investment in terms of what you've got for the money coming into the economy. This year, the golf resort was voted the best in the whole of the European Union, best themed water park. They're busy building a brand new casino resort in Europe with 550 million euro investment, 15,000-seater in terms of the amphitheater, 140 gambling tables, very first world medical and education facilities. And of course, properties are available. Depending on the budget, will depend in terms of what people are looking for. We have townhouse apartments, we have villa estates, we have huge luxury houses living in the side of the Mediterranean. We've got properties on the side of the hill. We have units for long-term rentals, short-term guaranteed for the holiday market. Anything that your investors are looking at, they're going to find is be able to tick a box in Cyprus. So before we actually close off, so first of all, this is definitely the right time to consider Cyprus. The markets are looking good. International confidence is certainly cementing this as a country worth considering. And of course, we have your partnership where we as Migrate Realty, been in operation since 2008, will hold your hand. We'll help you with the foreign exchange with Andy. You're looking to relocate, we'll get you your container across from Cape Town or Durban to make sure you have a seamless transition into the country. And while you're thinking about all of this, the best thing to do is to think about coming on an inspection trip. What we do is we have a 5-day all-inclusive property inspection trip offer. You need to get yourselves to Cyprus. We'll pick you up at the airport, host you for 5 nights at an absolutely stunning 5-star hotel. We will be laying on everything, take you to a bank account to open up your offshore bank account, sit you down with a firm of attorney so that you can discuss setting up a will and make sure that the entire process is seamless. We are your go-to team, Scott, for your plan B in Europe. Migrate Realty, been going for 10 years.
Geez, Jenny, that's a tough article to follow on from. That's why we had ladies first, because wow, that was a lot of information in 10 minutes. But that was absolutely wonderful. I must admit, it's been a while since I heard you speak, and I got a lot of information there as to what is now possible within Cyprus. So thank you very much. We're going to pivot across to Andrew now in Portugal, and I'm just going to share my screen with you quickly, Andrew. 2 seconds. So you should be able to now just show your screen, Andrew, and if you can give us the update of what the opportunities are in Portugal, and at the end I'm going to try and summarize all these different options. Yep, we got your screen. If you just want to go to PowerPoint mode, because we got.
Okay.
Yep, we got it perfect.
Okay, brilliant. It's always a difficult act to follow when Jenny's been speaking, but Scotty, thanks very much for the opportunity to present this opportunity to the audience this evening. I'm sure some of you may have heard of our business, Sable International. We're essentially a UK headquartered financial services and immigration business, and we've got a big branch down in South Africa. We employ in excess of 100 people in our Cape Town office, and yeah, we've had a really busy year with Portugal. A little bit about us. Yes?
Your little window is showing there, which it shouldn't be. Can you just close it? Just click on the orange button, and it'll just close it for you, because it's covering over your PowerPoint for some reason.
Sorry, there we go. Is that good?
Now, why is it still there? Oh, there we are. It's gone now. Yeah, perfect. Thanks.
I think there's a slight delay in the move. Our business has been, it was founded in 1995, shortly after South Africa rejoined the Commonwealth, and we specialize in British nationality and European residency citizenship, particularly in Portugal. And we also have a foreign exchange business and an international wealth management business. So why did Sable choose Portugal? We picked up an opportunity. Many South Africans, unfortunately, don't have a birthright back to their European heritage, because South Africa's been independent of its European colonial partners for many years. And so we were looking for a European-based residency by investment scheme that would ultimately give South Africans a plan B through a good real estate investment. We like Portugal. It's very much part of the old EU. It's mainland Europe. It's right on the western tip of Europe, so it's politically on a very attractive side of Europe in terms of all the migrant issues that other parts of Europe seem to be experiencing. What's really important, this is not a citizenship by investment program. When you make an investment into Portugal, you actually get a right to residency for 5 years. And this residency falls into existing immigration law in Portugal. It's not some clever law firm that's found a loophole. This is very much backed by the Portuguese government, and it was part of a raft of measures that they put in after the bailout in 2012, when Portugal was one of many countries in Europe that got a bailout from the IMF. What we also like about Portugal from a tax point of view as a South African, it's very benign. It doesn't get you into a complicated tax mess, and also more than that, it's actually quite attractive, because much like Cyprus, there's no inheritance tax. And in fact, there's some other very nice tax opportunities in Portugal if one wants to actually go and physically live there. The Golden Visa is one of the rafts of measures that they put in place, particularly to attract non-European investors. So if you're a British citizen, you cannot take advantage of the Golden Visa, because currently they're still European nationals. We'll see what happens after March next year. But the program was introduced in 2012. It got off to quite a slow start, but has become extremely popular. And I would say from a residency by investment program, by far the most attractive in Europe. And the other advantage of Portugal is English is widely spoken, and for South Africans, that's really important. Here some stats are. That's just an official graph that I took off the Portuguese government website today. To date, 6,687 families have been approved since inception of the program in October 2012, and that equates to, in total, under family reunification, another 11,300 people. So as a main investor, without further capital investment, you can tag your spouse and dependent children along as well. So just some interesting statistics. Out of the purchase of real estate, 6,320 of those main investors out of the 6,600 have gone the real estate route. And there are two options. You can either invest a minimum of 350,000 euros or a minimum of 500,000. And there's just slight complexity around the 350,000. It's buying an old property over 30 years old and renovating it. Whereas the 500,000 euro minimum, you can buy any real estate. They're non-prescriptive. And then there's also two capital investment opportunities. You can put €1 million into a stock portfolio, or you can put it in the bank. You can see that's not really that popular. 355 investors have done that. And more recently, they've released a really attractive €350,000 private equity option, which has literally just been launched in September, and we've already got about 20 clients who've signed up for that, because that makes a big difference, 350 versus sort of 500 plus. And you can also establish a company and employ, create 10 jobs for 10 taxpayers. And out of the 6,600, only 12 people have done that route. But I think what's interesting to note is that close on 4 billion euros has been directly invested by non-Europeans into the Portuguese economy. And this has been a massive contribution to the country, and it's been really good for Portugal. In order to qualify, you need to be non-European and obviously have a clear criminal record. But what's really important, and I think this is something that'll come out in the rest of this presentation, is that before anybody should go bowling into Europe and spending this kind of money, is you need good partners. And I think what's really important to understand is that companies like ourselves, not only have we partnered with the best professionals locally and in Portugal, but we've actually got an office in Lisbon, and I've got a team of my own people, South African, they can speak English, Portuguese, and Afrikaans. And we've got fantastic relationships with real estate agents and with lawyers over there who understand our clients and look after them. The benefits, obviously, you only need to spend on average 5 days a year in the 5-year period running up to citizenship. Whilst you're holding the residency throughout that 5-year period, you can travel visa-free in Schengen. I think the investments have proven to be fantastic. Our clients are all very happy. It's a fantastic foreign currency asset, and obviously a hedge against the rand, which is A, very volatile, and B, continually devaluing against all the hard currencies, particularly the euro. The rental market in Portugal is very buoyant, and that's driven by a lot of businesses investing into Portugal, as well as the fact that tourism is booming. It's obviously a potential route to EU nationality or Portuguese nationality, which by implication is you become an EU national, and you're entitled to become a citizen after 5 years of consecutive residency, provided you can prove that Portugal is your new nationality, and they test that by way of a fairly simple language test. And another big benefit is that obviously the applicants, as I've said, can tag along their dependents and their spouses on this. So the turnkey solution that we offer is we do an assessment of the family structure. We assist with all the documentation that one is required to collate in South Africa for the Portuguese authorities. We handle your investment trip. We have a service where we look after you whilst you're in Portugal. We open up your Portuguese bank accounts. We get you a tax number. We can handle your foreign exchange requirements from this side, helping you with your Reserve Bank approvals and your foreign tax clearance certificates. And more importantly, we can really help with the property acquisition and the property management process going forward. And then obviously we also do all the residency applications and the renewals that take you up to citizenship. So how to move money, we all probably know that you can move up to 11 million Rand per year under your discretionary allowance of 1 million and your capital allowance of 10 million. And as I said, Sable International can also help with that process, which is again, often quite tricky and can be quite admin intensive. So that's all from me. So thanks very much for listening.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Andrew. Wow, I didn't expect everyone to be so timeous tonight. So thank you very much. I appreciate it a lot. I'm going to pivot now to Stuart, who's in Cape Town. Hopefully we can hear him. Stuart effectively has partners on the ground in America. And let me do 2 seconds. I'm going to find Stuart here. There we are. He's coming up as Advocate Leon because he's on Advocate Leon's laptop. Stuart, if you're with us, can you just press share your screen, or do you want me to run the slides off my screen?
Scott, yeah, let's just go. Let's share the screen.
Can you see that?
Hi there, Scott. Can you see that?
Yes, we got your slides.
Okay,
yeah.
Great.
Well, before Stuart starts, I just wanted to say I've got to be careful of Stuart because 2 of my directors have immigrated to America because of him.
Yeah, Scott, I mean, as always, Wealth Migrate have been great strategic partners for ourselves, as well as Andrew Rissick from Sable, who have assisted a number of our clients with the externalization of funds and everything else like that. Scott, I'm with Advocate Leon Fastfeld. He's an ex-South African. He's been practicing immigration law in the US for the last 18 years. He's one of my panel immigration attorneys that I utilize. And he's going to go through just a couple of very basic options that are available to South Africans. I naturally am very biased in terms of the EB5 program. It's a program that I've been actively promoting in South Africa since 2009. But Leon's going to talk very basically just through possibly some other alternatives that are available to South Africans who are seeking long-term immigration, green card, citizenship into the United States. And then we'll ratchet back down into EB5, some of our current offerings, and then the actual process involved in obtaining green cards and eventual citizenship. So I'm going to hand over to Leon.
Scott, can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you loud and clear.
All right, well, is dit in die haak as ek sê goeienaand aan al die luisteraars?
And for the Chinese people, can you do that in Mandarin as well? I'm joking.
Every opportunity that I get to speak some Afrikaans, it's always welcome. I graduated from Tikkies back in the day, practiced law here for a brief moment as an advocate before I immigrated to the United States. And immigration in the United States changed since 9/11, which is right around the time when I got into this, where it changed from INS to the Department of Homeland Security. That has dramatically changed on how this agency works and how they function with one another. Previously, we had the INS basically deporting people, greeting people at the border, as well as, issuing green cards and visas for people. So the law hasn't changed, but the agency has changed in how it interacts with one another. I oftentimes get asked by people, how do you immigrate to the United States? It's a blanket kind of question. And I basically say, look, short from getting a tourist visa and hopping over there, or applying for the green card lottery, or going over on a student visa and so on and so forth, there are three real main elements that you need to look at to really kind of narrow down, something that sometimes seems very complex. And the first option is if you have a U.S. citizen family member in the United States or a permanent resident family member. If you don't, then, maybe there's a U.S. employer who's willing to employ you. Or if you don't have a U.S. employer, maybe we can create one, and I'll go into that in a little bit. And then, last but not least, obviously through this EB5 investment. So I'll start off with the family members. If you have, the typical thing that people always talk about is how you get your U.S. citizen wife to basically sponsor you, and that's obviously the most easiest way to get a permanent residency in the United States. But there are also some other family preference categories. If you have a brother and sister, it may take a while, it may take like 12 years, but you may have, a lot of people don't even know this, but sons and daughters of U.S. citizens can be sponsored. Sons and daughters of permanent residents can be sponsored. And some other folks don't really know that immediate relative for purposes of immigration is not only U.S. citizens' spouses, but it is also parents of U.S. citizens. So oftentimes we'll put a strategy together wherein we will get the kid maybe a green card, he will navigate through the process and ultimately become a citizen. And then it's a pretty easy process for him to sponsor mom and dad ultimately to come to the United States, which leads me then to a very common question that I get, which differentiates, I think, the United States immigration system from most of these other countries. Age doesn't count, doesn't matter. Previous medical conditions, doesn't matter. It's not even applicable. Education, in some visa categories, yes, it matters. But otherwise, in my example of the U.S. citizen kid sponsoring his mom and dad, doesn't matter. So these are very important things to take into consideration, in immigrating to the United States. Through employment, it always becomes a little bit challenging because under the Trump administration where we're at right now, they have really kind of clamped down on some of these visa categories, one of which being the most popular, the H-1B visa category, wherein an employer in the United States would want to sponsor someone for a position that requires the minimum of a bachelor's degree or the equivalent thereof, and the applicant having the equivalent of a bachelor's degree. But it's become very controversial over the period of time. There's only 65,000 of these visas available. And, every year we see the likes of Google, Apple and everybody applying for these visas. And there's over 200,000 applicants, which puts you then ultimately in a lottery situation. And if you don't make the cut this year, you need to just wait until the next year. And it ultimately, ends up in, a very bad situation if this is the only option that you're looking for. There are other seasonal visas that we get quite a lot of South Africans that are involved in. The farmers are in dire need of some hardworking farmers in the United States. We have an economy that's so great that the kid who used to hay bales back in the day, or go milk the cows at 5 in the morning, that is non-existent. And so these farmers are really in desperate need of farmers. So we have quite a lot of South Africans that are going over there on the agricultural visas and or seasonal visas. We help some priests out on the religious worker visas. Folks in South Africa that we've helped quite a lot, and all over the world, of people with extraordinary ability that will go over for certain periods of time to go perform certain events like boxing events or sporting events or musical events, and then ultimately that would lead to green card through the extraordinary ability route. Other visa options with regards to employment-based is the very popular intercompany transfer, where I have a company outside the United States that would create a affiliate branch or subsidiary, a qualifying relationship, and set up a new company in the United States with the ability to then transfer some of my executives or managers over to the United States. This is a very common practice with regards to creating something that there is not. And ultimately, immigration has recently really kind of clamped down on some of those L visas, and it's become a little bit more problematic. In the past 5 years, I would have said, L visa is a great option if that's something for you to consider, to move yourself over to the United States with a requirement of having worked for the foreign subsidiary for 1 year in the last 3 years before moving over to the qualifying U.S. company. The last one that I want to, I think, mention on this employment-based category is the investment visa, not the investment green card. The investment visa is for people who have citizenship from treaty countries. South Africa, unfortunately, is not one of those treaty countries. Portugal is not, and Cyprus is not as well. But these e-visas are also very good ways to get into the United States to start up your own practice, your own business. There's no minimum requirement for the minimum investment of what you need to bring. But ultimately, the downside with these e-visas, it doesn't ultimately lead to permanent residency and or citizenship. And then last but not least, obviously from a permanent way, is to permanently invest in the United States in the EB-5 program. Very popular. It's becoming more and more popular, where you invest into an approved regional center and $500,000. And then you, your spouse, and your kids under the age of 21 all gets permanent residency. So Stewart and them, we've worked with them on quite a few of their regional centers, and I'll hand it over to him to talk a little bit about their regional centers.
Leon, thanks very much for your enthusiasm. Thanks for cutting my time short. But I mean, as most of you know, the EB-5 is very prolific. We're doing exceptionally well both here in South Africa. We've got office representation in the UAE, India, Vietnam, and our track record is 100%. I'm just going to run through very quickly some of our past projects and some of our future projects that we're currently launching. We fully subscribed a development in Hollywood, which was a $200 million capex. That one is fully subscribed, and that building is now complete. We have just finalized the final subscriptions on a block called Hollywood Block 40, also in the state of Florida. That was also mixed-use development. Also, it's currently now fully subscribed. We are in the process of closing our final offerings on a Kansas City project, which is a rejuvenation of a historic building into a hotel. And we are about to launch a very exciting project in Chicago called Arlington Heights. It's with a very large capital company out of Chicago, and we've got some exciting opportunities here. Our subscription amount typically is $500,000 USD plus some admin fees, and on this particular project, we are waiving our admin fees. So it's a limited opportunity. We have short time with the sunset date of December the 7th, and those that are looking and or who have explored the EB-5 program, certainly the Arlington project is something to consider. I think we may have overrun our time, but for those of you that are wanting some additional information in respect of the timelines, we would be glad to engage with you and explain the actual physical timelines. But once again, Scott, thanks very much. With our 100% track record, we are gracious for allowing us the opportunity to have a chat with your audience.
Stuart, thanks for coming along. I will say one thing, and to be honest, this stands for Cyprus and for Portugal as well, but even more so for America. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of EB-5 programs out in America, and most of them are complete rubbish. You need to be very, very careful. They promise the world and they don't deliver. And one of the reasons for us doing the webinar, tonight and bringing trusted partners is that if you want to invest in Cyprus and and get a result, then Jenny's the person to deal with. If you want to do it in Portugal, then Andrew's the person to deal with. And if you want to do it in America, then Stuart is the one to deal with. And as I said, with all three of them, we've got track record. Quite a few. Two of my directors are now living, one in New York and one in Texas, Austin, having gone through what Stuart's done. So I want to be clear that these programs do exist, but it doesn't mean just because someone's offering it, they're all the same. And it's wonderful. It's wonderful to all three of you in terms of how you've been helping people. And Stuart, I've been to those buildings, and it's amazing to see them finished now. I saw them with shells years ago, and it's wonderful to see them in reality. So I want to pivot now to Andy Kerr. And like I said, we met, Andy and I met 10 years ago, and it feels deja vu in terms of where the economic markets are and people's concern around South Africa, etc. Andy's actually a Kiwi, so we don't talk rugby, but has been helping, if I remember rightly, for over probably 30 years now, been helping people invest in Australia and New Zealand. And really, I just wanted and asked him to share, because obviously a lot of people, want to look that way in terms of being able to immigrate and move there. And Andy just wanted to share some of the options that were available. So Andy, I'm going to share my screen with you quickly, just so that you will get access to your screen.
I'll have access to my screen. Thank you for that, Scott. But I won't. I didn't prepare any slides because you didn't ask me to.
Okay. No. Then that's perfect. So then we'll just leave the screen off and.
I'm just really going to talk. And thank you for inviting us to the webinar as well. And clearly, the team, Jenny, Andrew, etc., are very, very good at what they do. Jenny, I want to move to Cyprus. so I'm going to be coming to see you very soon. But if you can hear me. But listen, on the Australia-New Zealand front, I think from our perspective, I've lived in South Africa for 25 years. I'm a licensed advisor for Australia and New Zealand. I do a lot of standard skilled migrant applications with, people like teachers and engineers, et cetera. But at the level we are at the moment, I think we're talking more of, wealth migrate, wealth investment, opportunities for investment in all our countries of clearly. And down under in Australia and New Zealand, they're pretty black and white, and they're pretty straightforward about what they require and what they want. New Zealand specifically on an investor visa, they've actually just doubled the amount of money, went from 1.5 million to $3 million to pretty much, I quite simply call it the buy your way in visa. That allows you to do pretty much anything you want to in New Zealand. There is an age restriction, unlike the United States where there isn't. There is in New Zealand of 65 on that particular visa. And that's pretty much the only investor visa that you've actually got to get into New Zealand. Clearly, if you do have family members in New Zealand as well, there are other avenues and other ways to get in there, specifically being, but New Zealand very much on most visas revolves around, if you're going to live there permanently, then you better be employable, i.e. have a qualification or a skill or work experience that the immigration authorities in New Zealand deem skilled. Not a lot of investors we've done in the many years into the New Zealand scenario. I'd imagine a lot more are going to the US and Europe, Portugal, Cyprus, etc., because of the attractiveness of those particular destinations. And clearly Australia, however, has been a reasonably big destination for South Africans over the last 25 years that I've been doing it. Australia, again, lots of general skilled applications, but the problem with Australia on general skilled applications is the age limit is 45. 45 is quite young. I'm well over that age now, so I'm for those youngsters out there that are 45, you are very young, Scott, or even younger than that. But the Australian scenario for us more mature people, there is clearly avenues to get in. I think the advantage you've got with the Australian perspective when you come to the money and the investments is you've got virtually 3 levels. You can invest $1.5 million, and that literally you're just giving it to the Australians for 4 years, and they're going to invest it in a state bond, and you've just bought yourself a right to live and work in Australia. You don't even have to work, you can just go and live there. Clearly that gives you the opportunities to invest in properties, but you'd need to be touching base with Scott on that because that initial visa is temporary. You can only buy off plan, you can only buy new, and clearly wealth migrate are the people to speak to on that particular subject. When it comes to significant investor, that is now 5 million Australian dollars. They're getting a tremendous increase in Asia from that, specifically China, as you can appreciate. Literally just writing checks to the Australian government for 5 million Aussie dollars and buying their way in there under that sort of scenario. And then you've got a premium investor, which is 15 million Australian dollars. The advantage you've got with the investment opportunities in in Australia is they can be varied. So you don't have to be putting all of your capital into one particular investment. A lot of it is spread out between properties, stocks, shares, bonds. So there is quite a variety there that entitles you to get your visas. Property is a main one, clearly. If you establish yourself in Australia by way of owning property, that is definitely a huge stepping stone towards gaining citizenship and gaining a passport in Australia. Australia won't just issue a passport to you straight away, though. You do have to reside there. You can maintain your visa by just giving them the money, clearly. But if you want to live there and eventually hold an Australian passport, in Australia you have to live there for 4 years, for 8 months a year. It's called the 8/12 rule, quite simply. And in New Zealand, you'd have to live there for 5 years for a similar 8 months a year. So if you want to hold passports from those particular countries, there are minimum requirements of residing in those countries to actually obtain a passport. But it is, I suppose, like-minded. You mentioned the rugby. I won't talk about, the 1-point win over England on Saturday, because I was clearly very worried about that one. And you guys did a phenomenal job, by the way, in South Africa. Well done, beating France in the last few minutes. But I think the critical thing about the down under scenario is quite similarly, we're like-minded. The rugby, racing, and bear fraternity. So a lot of South Africans do like going down under because of the similar types of environments. In saying that, we are seeing a tremendous amount of people immigrating at the moment, and clearly from just listening to the team and the colleagues that are supported by Wealth Migrate, there's a lot of opportunities in lots of different countries, and I think we as team members and units and working with Scott and the team from Wealth Migrate are honoured to happily assist you with advice and any information that you require on, specifically from my point of view, Australia and New Zealand. Don't hesitate to contact us through this forum, and we'll be able to tell you the do's and don'ts and the ins and outs of successfully not only investing in these countries, but potentially permanently living there.
Awesome, Andrew. Thanks very much. We've had a number of clients that have immigrated to Australia by buying properties and working with yourself. And people always say to me, what is the advantage? And I've always said there were 4 advantages. One is that you build a credit rating. Now, to be frank, this will be the same for Portugal, America, and for Cyprus. You build a credit rating. I'm not sure if this is the same for everywhere, but in Australia, you can build up a tax write-off, which is quite valuable. You can also, you've already mentioned, but your capital that you're putting down as your deposit can go towards those amounts of 1.5, etc. And then lastly, what I've found from experience is that, people always say, well, maybe I should buy a home. And I say, well, don't buy a home, buy an investment property, and your investment properties will help you buy a home later down the line when you want to live. Now, again, what I'm saying there is the same for Cyprus, same for Portugal, same for America. It's the mindset of being able to set yourself up with that plan B. So listen, thank you very much for that. I want to just rock and roll quickly to give a quick summation in terms of what we've been through. From our perspective, technology is changing the world. There's plenty of platforms around the world. And really, we want to help people be able to manage everything in one place. So we were the only platform that was built with the end in mind, which was to be able to provide a global solution. And whether you want to invest in Cyprus, Portugal, America, Australia, New Zealand, or quite frankly, all 5 of them, then you now can. And you can manage it all on the platform in terms of where you're going. I've already explained to you that we've got members in 118 different countries. So there's quite significant in terms of the distribution. And then the other thing that I think is really important is that there's a lot of variety. Whether you're wanting to buy investment type properties, which we haven't spoken about tonight necessarily, or these type of properties which are investment and a passport. Even down to a Big 5 game reserve. I don't know if any of you online actually know this, but we helped investors from 248 investors from 20 countries invest into one of the top Big 5 game reserves in Africa. And then, I know Stuart showed the building, but I didn't have any. Well, Jenny showed some beautiful pictures of her buildings, and I haven't, I didn't see any there from yourself, Andrew. But this is actually the building that Stuart was referring to. So you're also dealing with really good quality partners, really good quality buildings in terms of that selection and variety in terms of that opportunity. From our side, we've got quite a significant team now, quite a significant board running both the company and where we're looking at. We've got team members now on 5 different continents in terms of where we're looking at. And I've been through this track record, and I think hopefully the quality of the partners tonight speak for themselves. I wanted to finish off with 2 little things, which I don't even know if the 4 of you know about, but we currently are doing an equity crowdfunding campaign with Cedars, which is the top platform out of Europe. And for those of you that are interested, I can share more information in terms of where our platform's going from a revenue growth perspective, from a share price perspective. I tend to say, when you look at the quality of the 4 partners we've had tonight, generally to date, property has been localized and linear, and it's now becoming exponential and global. And there's a need to have a platform like an Amazon that brings all the best quality partners together. And in terms of investing, generally when it came to tech companies, people were only able to participate sort of at this level around the Facebook and the Amazon once they IPO'd. I bet you many people that are online tonight wish they could get involved in Uber and Airbnb, but it's too late. And a company like Migrate is in the growth phase, and through Cedars, we're actually equity crowdfunding at the moment, and people can participate literally from £10. So people can become shareholders in the platform, in the company, from £10. And the link is actually there, cedars.com/wealthmigrate. And my son's coming to say good night to me. Just 2 seconds. Good night. I'll come say good night to you. And just what's interesting for anyone, if you are in South Africa, Australia, or America, they do have some regulatory things in terms of not being able to go through the platform. So we would need to speak to you offline. But certainly, if you like where the world's going, then it's an opportunity. And like I said, you've got the Amazon of global real estate. I tend to joke with people: can you afford not to be part of this? $10,000 invested in Amazon prior to the IPO is now worth $12 million today in terms of where we're going. And so just the next steps that I wanted to put up on the screen, and then I wanted to go to a Q&A, is that people can go to wealthmigrate.com. I do repeat that our version 5 only comes out on the 30th of November. We have done this webinar early, and the reason being is that all the partners that we've spoken to, including myself and most of the clients, are generally going into wind down time even now, and even more so in December, January. And so we're doing this so that people can understand. I am going to put up a poll. I'll put it in the chat group now, and you can go straight to it in terms of surveymonkey.com, and then what do you want? And you can actually share with what people want in terms of, and I'll put one up on the screen now, and we can get people to get hold of you directly. And then most importantly, my advice is speak directly with our partners, particularly when it comes to immigration. It's a little bit more complicated than just investing directly in a property, and they can hold your hand. All 4 of them spoke about how they can hold your hand through the process and enable you to achieve the outcome you want. And then finally, the reason we're all on this is because we really want you to become a global citizen. And there's many things and many definitions of what I believe a global citizen is, but one of them is being able to live wherever you want. And so without further ado, I'm going to leave that screen up, and I wanted to just put up a poll here quickly. So if you could let me know where you think the good opportunities are, so that if you want people to get directly in contact with you, they'll be able to do that. And while we're doing that, let's get up some questions here. There was a question for you, Jenny, from Ian Hawthorne, where he said, what would the benefit of getting residency in Cyprus if you already have a British passport?
Okay, well, thanks for that, Scott. The first important factor is that because Cyprus is an ex-British colony and they have a very strong relationship with the UK, the most important factor is that recently the Minister of Interrelations made an announcement that should any British citizen currently be living in Cyprus, they will automatically be considered a permanent resident and they will enjoy the benefits of that residency status. Means that they can come and go as they want, even when Brexit happens, and there might be some restrictions on being able to access the Eurozone. zone. They will be able to work freely in Cyprus in terms of retaining their UK status as well. And for those UK citizens that have not lived in Cyprus yet and are wanting to still get that residency status, they don't necessarily have to go on the fast track program with a 300,000 euros minimum investment. They can go on what's known as the slow track program. That basically will take 24 months for that applicant to become a permanent resident. There's a lot of due diligence that needs to be done, but once you're in the program, you become a temporary resident. Like the fast track, you don't have to live there, but that does then mean that you'll have a freedom of access to continue living and working and doing what you want to in the whole of Cyprus. You won't be excluded at all. So it really is meaningful because it means that the Cypriot government has looked after their British citizens in terms of saying, hold on a second, we used to be part of you. You want to make sure that continuation continues. But more importantly, when Brexit happens, even despite what happened today with Theresa May's announcements, etc., we want to make sure that you feel quite comfortable that your decision to live in that slice of the Mediterranean is going to continue.
Fantastic. Thanks very much for that, Jenny. In terms of yourself, Andrew Rizik, you spoke about yields in Portugal. What sort of returns can one look at, after one's invested? Andrew, you there? Andrew, we don't seem to have any audio from you. I can see your face, but I don't have any audio.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. In terms of the yields, rental yields, depending where you invest, if you're looking in Lisbon, which is now in the most expensive and desirable parts, become very expensive relative to 3 or 4 years ago, you're probably going to be looking at 2.5 to 3% on a long-term rental. In some areas, much like anywhere in the world, if you buy in less desirable areas, you might get better yields. What we're seeing, in fact, I met a developer today. He's got some interesting stock about an hour out of Lisbon in a very interesting little village, and you're looking at about 7 or 8%. But that's quite aggressive for Europe. And then short-term rentals probably anywhere between 6 and 7%. And a lot of that will be guaranteed, if there's a good hotel operator.
Perfect. Thanks very much. Stuart, you towards the end, you were going to talk about the process of EB5. And I know we ran out of time a little bit there. If someone invests, because if you take, one of block 40 or whatever you showed up there, the big $200 million, CapEx projects, and someone's investing and partnering with the developer and doing the deal, how does the process work in terms of A, getting a return, and B, getting an EB5?
Yeah, Scott, what I'm going to focus on is really the timeline. And your investment or your lock-in period, if I can use that terminology in a specific investment, is really to a large degree linked to your immigration timeline. So in our projects, we typically only get ourselves involved in projects that have got an exemplar status. That means that the projects have been pre-vetted by immigration, which means that from a due diligence aspect is when we are filing a potential investor, to a large degree, the adjudication really just is related to the source of funds and their basic eligibility. So the adjudication timeline is between 18 and 20 months as an average. We are seeing some files being adjudicated in a time period as short as 9 months. Post-adjudication, they would then get prepared into the process. And that currently here in South Africa, if the investors are still in South Africa, is roughly about another 6 months. Thereafterwards, they get issued with a temporary immigrant visa, which allows them to enter the United States. And 6 weeks thereafter, their green cards are issuance of their first green cards. They need to remain the investment for that point would need to justify to the USCIS that their money remains at risk, and at risk is a bold term. Our investments are relatively risk-free, and we spend a lot of time educating our investors in respect of exactly what they are investing into. Also, during that time period, they need to be deemed to be creating the 10 jobs indirectly, which is done through the regional center. They then go through what's known as the I-29 process, which is really just some paperwork that the immigration attorney files, and thereafter they are eligible for the redemption and payment back of their capital. Typically, the returns that they would get from an EB5 perspective, if you look at if they're going into a greenfield development, they're sharing some risk in respect of the development timelines, but typically they would be getting between a 2 and 5% return over the period. In a lot of because we nurture relationships with our investors, we have a conversion clause because are engaged with them for a period of 5 years. 5 years, they are eligible, if they've been happy with the underlying investment, to convert from a pref position or from a loan position into a slightly better ranking from an equity investment. In a nutshell, I mean, the investments stand up on their own 2 feet, and certainly they are guaranteed to get to the finish, which is an EB5. Scott, what I'd like to just reiterate is that we have a December the 7th deadline. By virtue of the popularity, the program is oversubscribed on an annual basis, and we're expecting a number of changes to the investment program. One of the most in South Africa is the increase the capital contribution to a project qualifies him, but we're anticipating that investment threshold will be increased to about $1 million, and that is a reality. So I urge those that are considering EB5, green cards, and eventual citizenship into the United States, not to procrastinate, but rather to urgently action it.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I've got deja vu, Stuart. I don't know when we first did our webinar, but it was 2-3 years ago, and Martin, I'll just call him Martin, was driving home from work and was listening to our webinar and got on the phone straight away to you the next day and basically signed up for his EB5. It was the same sort of thing now at the end of the year where they're making the changes. And like you know, he now lives in New York. So it's just interesting how every year they look to sort of make changes. And I think, I mean, as Andy said, in New Zealand, they've just doubled it from 1.5 to 3 or whatever you said.
Yeah.
In fact, Scott, I mean, Martin was one of the quickest filings I've ever done. Really acted exceptionally swiftly. We literally filed them in 1 day. So yeah, he's one of our great brand ambassadors. Thanks to Wealth Migrate.
No, awesome. Tell me, Andrew, from your perspective, and Andy Kerr, New Zealand, Australia, you know, some people confuse them as one place, but if one was to look at it, my overall understanding is that it's quite a lot harder to get into Australia than it is New Zealand. Although when I listened to you tonight, I didn't really hear how it was easy to get into New Zealand unless you're young, I presume, with skills.
Well, I think the bottom line, Scott, is at the moment, Australia from an investor perspective is actually easier. You know, certainly from a property development, property investment for return perspective, Australia. In fact, I would, even though I'm a Kiwi, I would pick Australia hands down if that's what I wanted to do. New Zealand is more. I suppose it's more for your general normal family that's just perhaps looking to get over there and find a job and start working and relocate their family. Whereas I think the purpose of tonight is to assist people, clearly from a wealth perspective, to be able to obtain passports in other countries. And hands down, Australia is way better than New Zealand to do that. In fact, it's less money. I mean, if you look at the 1.5, for example, Australia didn't double it. But I'd just like to add something, to back up what Stuart just said. I mean, the world is getting smaller. There is absolutely no doubt about this. And these countries are getting tougher to get into, and they are changing their rules and regulations reasonably consistently. So I back up what Stuart just said. If you really want to do this and you have the capital and the investment funds to be able to do this at this time, I would strongly suggest you did it sooner rather than later. Because as I just told you with New Zealand, overnight, they didn't even warn anybody. They just went from 1.5 million investment to 3 million overnight. It was quite astounding. But yeah, so it's the world is changing. It's getting a much smaller place, and to be able to have a passport to live in another country, especially from South Africa. And guys, I love this country. It's been so good to me. It really has, South Africa, but we do have some concerns here, and therefore a lot of people are looking at their opportunities to potentially take their families overseas, either temporarily or permanently. And clearly we can all help you do that.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I think there's a couple of people have asked to be put directly in contact with different individuals from your guys' side, so I'll make sure that I do that. I did forget, I apologize, to put the link for that survey, which I've now done, into the chat box. It'll make it a little bit easier for you. You can literally just go and click on the link. So I don't see any other questions here. So what I would suggest then, if no one else has any questions, let me just double check to make sure no questions have come in. No. So what I'd like to do then is let's finish off sort of closing thoughts, and we'll go in the same order of how we did the presentations. But before you do that, I just wanted to thank all four of you for sharing your knowledge. I don't think people fully realize the value of being able to sit down for 60 minutes and deal with 4 world-class partners. It would take them a year just to find the 4 of you, and so to have all 4 of you in one place, is a very unique and special opportunity. So thank you from my side.
I've always liked you, Scott. Your compliments are just amazing. Thank you.
Any closing thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, Scott, the most important thing is that any decision that anybody is wanting to make, take the time and the money to actually get an airline ticket, go across and check things out for yourself. I mean, Stuart alluded to the fact a little earlier that there are lots of people out there, lots of programs. You just don't know who you're dealing with. Make sure that these guys have got the proper due diligence that's been done. Do Google search on them. Make sure that you're asking for references. Make sure that you're dealing with the best of breeds, both here locally and offshore. This is a big investment financially, emotionally. Make sure you're dealing with the right partners.
Yeah, well said, Jenny. Andrew?
Thanks, Scott. Thanks for the opportunity to present again. As Jenny says, I think that goes without saying. I mean, there's some horror stories of South Africans who just are regularly being ripped off by very smooth operators who fly in and fly out. So really try and get people who've got some sort of presence in South Africa where there's a degree of accountability. But I think what's really important to say, and I mean, listening to all the speakers this evening, is every program is very, very different to the other ones. And it's very, very confusing and very daunting for an investor to sort of, think, let's do a plan B, but like, how do you actually take it forward? And don't rush, because there are tons of things to consider. I mean, are you looking for a plan B for your children? Are you actually physically looking to relocate? What are the tax implications? Don't put your house up and bond your house to try and do this and get yourself into trouble. It's really a lot of things. You've got to get tax advice on both sides. Take your time. There's always going to be a program available, I believe. There are always countries looking for good capital investors and good taxpayers. So don't rush. That's my advice.
Perfect. Thank you, Andrew. Stuart?
Again, Donald, thank you to you and the other attendees. It's always great to be part of these webinars. My advice to those that are listening is that if you're really seriously considering an alternative B, I seriously would not procrastinate. I think that we're going through some volatility in terms of our rand and our general economics here. Certainly those that are considering alternatives, be it the US, be it Cyprus, be it Portugal, I certainly wouldn't procrastinate. I think that these programs are all going to be overhauled quite dramatically in the near future. So my advice for those that are considering option B is to start looking at your options. Do your due diligence on some of the products that are out there, and certainly I wouldn't procrastinate. Now's the time to be aggressively looking at and secure the future of your family.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Stuart. And Andy Kerr?
Yeah, just reiterate what everybody said, especially Jenny, you started it off. Make sure you're working with the right people. I think 50% of the business that we currently get is from referral, and it's from people. I mean, it's not as though I actually use this in a seminar. You're not buying a piece of furniture here. You're buying a lifestyle. You're buying your future, for yourself and your family. And And Andrew was very, very correct. In South Africa, we do tend to have a few charlatans and shysters that are out there just not really caring about anybody bar themselves. And what we've been able to do with Network and the relocation division is just put people around good people. People that are honest and they understand this process, the emotions involved, the stress, the amount of money, and just work with people that are genuine. And it's nowadays with technology, it's pretty easy to check on how genuine people are.
Well, what a wonderful way to end off with the word technology, because I tend to keep saying we should have an Amazon of real estate that would make it easy for people, where track record and social proofing should be. I did take my notes for all four of you, and awesome. I do think that someone should build a table and try and make it easy for people to see the difference between them. But no, look, thank you to all of you for being online. Thank you to all the people who participated tonight and asked questions. I remind you, you can go to the platform. All four of the partners are not there yet. They will be there, going forward from the 30th of November. You can fill in the survey in the meantime. I will be, if you filled in the poll, I will be putting you in contact with the partners. Most importantly, speak to them. I can't vouch or say more for all four of these partners, other than the fact that I've worked with them for more than 10 years. I've seen hundreds of people work, as their clients, and every single one of them I would, stand by in terms of, their quality and their caliber of what they're doing. And really, from my side, I just wanted to say thank you. I am, as a proud South African, I don't necessarily like talking about helping people immigrate personally, but I believe mostly something that I'm most passionate about is creating global citizens and people to have the freedom to live where they want to send their children, to whatever school they want, to work for whoever they want. And for me, one of them is live in whatever country they want. And that's one of the reasons why tonight I wanted to bring together these four partners so that we could share it not only with the people who are online tonight, but for the future in terms of the recording. And so to all of you, be proud of where you're from, but most importantly, focus on becoming a global citizen. And I leave you with one closing thought. Half of my family is from Zimbabwe. My uncle, at the age of 30, in 1980 in Zimbabwe, started investing overseas and started pre-planning. So, very much what Andrew Rizek was talking about. And only in 2003 did he actually immigrate to Australia. He bought his way into Australia at the age of 53. And the metaphor of the story is that I truly believe as a global citizen, you can live anywhere you want in the world. You can do anything you want in the world, but it does take pre-planning. And it's those people that react and don't have a plan that get, stuck living in places they don't want to live. And that's certainly not my desire for anyone that's online tonight. So thank you very much to everyone. Thank you to all of you for your time, and really appreciate it. And if I don't speak to you before, the end of the year, have a fantastic, festive season and all of that. And I look forward to really being able to provide a lot of clients with access to your service through technology next year. Good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.